This is a spaceship, a virtual spaceship, for travelling in time, fueled up and ready to go. Let's blast off on a journey to the Time Warp Tavern, a friendly pub with a difference. Join Russell and Lawrence there as they revisit their experiences of life as two young boys growing up in the 1960s.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff.
What will they be talking about today?
Yes, I remember that.
I was 7 or 8 years old.
But excited all the same.
Yeah. You don't have fruit machines in pubs anymore, do you?
I suppose you do. But pulling that handle on the fruit machine, it just reminds me that one of the most nostalgic things for me, when I think back to childhood now, is going on holiday by the sea.
Oh, yeah. Just come out of school summer holidays. Yes! And then your complete demeanour changes then.
Yeah.
We had some great times. It was quite exciting. Just to be somewhere doing something different.
Yeah.
But it's all kind of going on in your head, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was living it before the holiday even started, you know.
Yeah.
The last few days, there's a real air of expectation, you know.
Yeah.
When we were very young, the summer holidays, I remember them lasting 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So it seemed like it's a really long time. And you knew that you were going to have a week by the sea as well coming up.
Yeah.
I think on the last day of school before summer holidays, we used to get shown a film or something.
Yeah, I think we did. I remember at our secondary school, they would show a movie
That's right.
in the hall.
Projected in the hall,
And I
yeah.
remember it would have been 1968, I suppose.
Yeah.
Cat Ballou.
Oh, yeah, Cat Ballou.
And that was supposed to be a big treat for us.
Right, okay. I think the biggest treat was the fact that we got off early. You know,
Oh, yeah.
They used to let us off about an hour or so earlier than normal.
You really felt like you were getting away with something.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. My parents had very quickly taken to Clacton-on-Sea as their preferred choice of holiday destination. That was in place from before my earliest memories, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my mum thought it was a little bit more refined than somewhere like Southend, which was like...
Bognor.
Yeah, not quite so kiss me quick type of place, you know.
Yeah.
Also, I think they wanted somewhere which wasn't too far away to travel to, you know, so the Essex coast was the nearest one. And we carried on there till my early teens.
Well, I mean, my earliest memories of holidays were going up north to Yorkshire to stay with my grandparents.
Oh, right. They were the earliest ones you remember, aren't
Yeah,
they?
probably 62, 63-ish. And we would drive up north in my dad's Morris Oxford. But the thing was, that in those days, I think we probably would have gone up the A1, I suppose, to Yorkshire. And we would have to stop halfway to let the car cool down. Cars then weren't built to do hundreds of miles. So we'd pull over somewhere and you'd see the steam coming out from under the bonnet. We'd have peanut butter sandwiches, a flask of tea, probably,
Peanut butter sandwiches.
in a lay-by.
So you'd be like the typical English family on holiday, you know, where they set up their little trestle table by the roadside.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly like that,
Yeah.
And then we would have a day out and we'd go to Bridlington
Oh,
on the
brilliant, yeah.
coast. My dad used to have a little home movie camera and I've still got a shot of my older sister, Susan. In the background, you can see this advertising hoarding tonight in the community hall, Adam Faith.
Community hall.
Yeah. Wow.
She didn't go along to see him.
I don't think so. Probably a bit young. She would have been 14 or 15.
How old were you at the time then?
Yeah, 5 or 6.
So it must have been quite difficult going on holiday. You know, you got such an age gap because your requirements would have been so different, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think pretty soon she was moving into that bracket of being a real teenager. Wants to be with her mates, doesn't want to go on holiday with her boring little younger brother. But very soon after that, we did have a very posh holiday at Pontins in Wall Park, which is down on the Devon Cornwall coast somewhere.
All right. I never actually went to a holiday camp, funnily enough. My parents never did that.
I think we only ever went once.
Yeah.
I think it was 1964. It was okay, but the only thing I was interested in was the fruit machines. And you could play billiards as well.
Was it very sort of regimented? You know, that's what I imagined it to be.
It was quite regimented. And the thing that I hated about it, my mum had bought me and my brother imitation leather jackets, like a rocker would wear.
Yeah.
So I thought I was really cool. But my mum wanted me to join the Coot Club, a holiday camp club for the young ones.
Just the name says it all, doesn't
Yeah.
it? The Coot Club. I mean,
And I felt like a proper nana.
was it a bit
'Cause I-
sort of square? Was it? And
Yeah, it was really square.
Each morning, all the young kids had to assemble in this sort of like effectively like a school hall, and there was some middle-aged bloke doing magic tricks and
what they thought kids should be doing.
yeah.
Basically.
And here's me,
Mm.
like a real biker rocker.
Yeah, I mean, just the idea of holiday camps.
Yes,
I mean, I don't think it would have appealed to my parents, actually.
yeah.
Especially my dad. I mean, I think we would see it more as, rather than a holiday camp, more like a concentration camp.
Well, it was really, to be honest.
The thing was, like, my parents didn't drive, so when we went away, we always had to go on a coach. And the problem was I suffered from travel sickness.
Well, I did as a child.
Did
I
you?
got it terribly.
Yeah.
I remember when we used to go out to Yorkshire in my dad's Morris Oxford, I would spend most of the time sort of lying on my side in the back.
So I used to just get it on coaches.
Yeah.
We didn't travel in cars very much, but if ever somebody gave us a lift in a car, I had no problems with cars, and I didn't have a problem with trains either. There was something about the motion and the smell of coaches, and
I think also,
Yeah.
because I used to get this when I was at primary school, and we used to have to do a swimming lesson.
yes, that's right. They used to take you in a coach, didn't they?
We had to go from my school in Ickenham to the local swimming bars in Ruislip.
Oh, yeah.
It was about a 20-minute drive, I suppose.
You know, a long time to be stuck on a coach.
And you weren't allowed to move around or anything. I hated swimming, and I hated being on the coast.
You used to get those skylight windows, didn't you? And they were usually orange, weren't they?
That's right.
And
yeah.
used to make me feel more queasy than I
Yeah.
already did.
Yeah.
The upholstery as well, they had these sort of covers on them, didn't they? Plastic covers over the seat. I used to just hate the whole feel of them.
And the smell of diesel probably as
That's
well.
right, that's right,
mixed
yeah.
in. Oh, really nauseating.
But looking at it now, you know, from my adult perspective, I suppose it just shows kind of how considerate your parents are. My mum used to sit there next to me on the seat, you know, with a plastic bag at the ready.
Oh, and they also
Yeah.
used to provide you with barley sugar to suck.
Do you remember Quells?
Yes.
My mum used to give them to me. They didn't make any difference.
No, probably a placebo effect.
I think part of it was the overexcitement of knowing that I was going on holiday.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
had we gone on a train, I would have been perfectly all right.
Yeah.
I remember one year the coach broke down.
Oh, no.
I think we had to
Right.
transfer to another coach. But
Mm.
all that time I was just sitting on the coach. I felt trapped.
Oh,
You know.
yeah. Especially with a hot day and
Yeah. I remember like the first moment when I used to see the boundary sign, you're just entering Clacton, you know. Oh, that's it, my ordeal's coming to an end now, sort of thing. In the far
can you
distance.
see the sea? Yeah.
Yeah, on the horizon.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to get off, sort of thing. And then my mum had to dispose of the plastic bag, you know, which was
Oh, dear.
say no more.
Oh, no.
You know, which she'd have to sit there for the whole journey with, you know.
No. Yeah.
That's what I say. You reflect and appreciate the patience of your parents back in those days. So at Clacton, there was always guest houses, you know, with bed breakfast and evening meal, where they'd ring the gong in the morning and everything.
Wow.
When we first arrived, you know, we'd drop off all our luggage and that, and we'd go through all the ritual of having to book in and everything, you know.
Yeah.
And then what used to really excite me was like when you first got to the seafront, it was like this adventure playground you had, you know, so all laid out in front of you.
Oh, yeah.
There'd probably be somewhere that was playing the pop music of the day, I think.
Yeah, Adam Faith.
Yeah.
And
Beat groups.
oh, beat groups. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right, yeah.
From my parents' point of view, the Beatles were just on the edge of being acceptable.
Yeah,
Their music was a bit beaty and a bit poppy,
yeah.
and their hair was just going onto their collars.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like borderline naughty. But Rolling Stones, a bunch of sneering
Yobbos, basically.
yobbos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad didn't like sneering yobbos.
Yeah.
He was very much from the old school of dance orchestras and,
Yeah.
you know.
But as well as all the music, you know, you'd be getting all the sights, sounds and smells of the seafront, wouldn't you?
Yeah, very much.
The waves lapping against the pier.
There might be an ice cream stand somewhere.
And I remember the men walking along the seafront in their seafaring caps, you know, trying to drum up business for pleasure trips.
Yeah.
All aboard for your motorboat. Off on our sea trip. All aboard for your motorboat. And you knew all the amusements and that were there.
Yes. I remember when we went to Pontins holiday camp, so that had been 64,
Yeah.
and they had an amusement arcade. So the old slot machines. I think they had a snooker table as well. My dad would give me a few pennies and I'd just pump them into the machine till they'd all gone. And then I'd go back and say, oh, can I have some more? Once in 100 times, it would suddenly burst out, loads of pennies would come out. They used to have that slot in it and you'd have to kind of push the penny right into the back and then it would slot down. And then when you pulled the handle, it was like a crank handle on a car, turning the pistons over. It's nothing.
It used to be like horse racing machines with slots where you could bet on different horses.
Yeah.
I used to go around these places and look at, where they paid out. Because sometimes people would leave money in there that hadn't picked it all up. And find some pennies there,
Yeah.
But those first few moments on the front, they were like a heightened sensory experience.
Yeah.
There was always like a lot of smells. Ice cream.
Toffee apples.
Popcorn.
Yeah.
And then right on the front there'd be like a little newsagents or kiosk. And that would be like a beacon because it would have like a revolving comic rack outside. Yeah. And they'd all be faded, the comics, where they'd been outside too long.
Yeah.
But I used to love the smell of the print. All these different things. These were all like enticing you into the holiday,
Yeah. When we went on these holidays to Yorkshire, there was a little chip shop just down the road. And of course, Friday night would be fish and chips.
Yeah.
And so it was a little treat to go get in the car with my dad and we'd drive down to the chip shop and you'd go in there and ask for 2 ones of each.
2 ones of each?
2 ones of each. I still don't know what that means. But also, you could buy a penneth of crackling.
Oh, right, yes.
So they'd just scoop up all the crackly bits. And then we would go back to the house and all of my grandma's neighbours and friends knew that we'd come up from down south.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So we were like rock stars. And I remember going into the front room and you'd sit there with your
bag of crackling.
Maybe a pickled onion, possibly.
Yeah.
And then seated around me was a ring of old ladies wearing sort of black dresses and bonnets, staring at me. That I'd come from another planet, And it used to make me cry.
Sounds like a scene from the Stepford Wives or something. I mean, it sounds really weird. So I'm guessing they didn't see many people from down south then.
Well,
it was a real special treat if we went out in the evening. Probably go down to the front and look at the lights,
Oh, yeah.
And my parents would get us fish and chips, or saveloy and chips.
Me and a friend of mine, Paul Fox.
Before he was the controller of BBC One.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to go to the chip shop and Paul always used to get a saveloy and chips.
Yeah.
And I used to look at this saveloy and think, oh, that looks really delicious. I must try one of these saveloys. And so one day I ordered saveloy and chips. Yeah. And I bit into saveloy. What's this? I thought it was like eating rubber. If it was a sausage, that's fair enough.
That was another thing, actually. You could get sometimes sausage in batter, couldn't you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And we used to get something else when you were on holiday. It was another little treat. Different connotation now, but this thing called faggots.
Oh, Ross's faggots. Yeah.
We used to get them in like a takeaway place along the front.
Yeah. But it was one of those things that was a bit of a mystery to me. I didn't really know what a faggot was.
No.
What is it, actually? I don't know.
Best that you don't know.
Yeah.
We'd sit down the front and look at the lights and eat that. And you just take in all the excitement of it all because it felt like Las Vegas, a little amusement arcade or a seafront,
Hollywood.
It's just at that time as the 1960s were coming to life, the sort of mod thing was starting to happen. And I remember if you looked out to sea, you could just see Radio Caroline.
Oh, really?
You could see the ship because it was out somewhere near Frinton Way, which was not far from Clacton. It was actually visible. And you think, wow. So you did feel like you were in the hub of things. You had like milk bars and places like that.
Yeah. There was a little cafe called the Pelican Cafe.
Yeah.
And I would go there with my mum and she'd buy bread, a loaf of bread there. And so at the front part, it was like a bakery. But if you went just through, there was like a cafe bit at the back and you could have a cup of coffee or a milkshake.
Yes.
And to me, the people in there must be film stars or, and the idea of having coffee, espresso or whatever it was, exotic.
It seemed like it, didn't it? I mean, I remember being taken into like one of these milk bars, be after my bedtime, dark. So you had all the neon lights, so it was all exciting. And they'd buy me a Pepsi Cola with 2 straws in it, in the bottle.
Yeah.
And they'd have the jukebox in there. So you'd have a few teenagers in there playing records like the current hits or something. this is it, this is the high life,
Yeah, yeah.
Going out at night was quite exciting.
I can't remember us ever doing anything in the evenings, but when we went to that Pontins holiday camp, I remember my dad took our transistor radio with us, which was a Baird, and he stayed up till 4 a.m. to listen to Cassius Clay fighting Sonny Liston. Remember that?
I remember, yeah, I remember it.
And he
yeah.
stayed up just to listen to the commentary
Right.
in the early hours.
Well, I remember similar excitement in summer 1966.
Yeah.
Mrs. Dance, the landlady of the guest house we were staying in at the Charlton, she invited my dad into the front room to watch the World Cup final on television.
Wow.
And I was totally not into football. And I remember it was a nice sunny day outside, Rather have been on the beach, but my parents would be having endless cups of tea. But I just knew that it was a special moment to remember.
Yeah.
My mum, she was very concerned with keeping up appearances and what other people might think.
Yes.
Too worried about that sort of thing. And especially, you find yourself in a situation like in a guest house where there's other people.
Yeah.
She was very conscious of not doing anything which would make other people think we were common, I
don't know if you're familiar with Simon Day's comic character, Tommy Cockles.
Oh, yeah, very much.
That's my dad.
Oh, is it?
Tommy Cockles is my dad.
Right.
Blazer, smart blazer.
Blazer, yeah.
Talking about, it really were marvellous times. And even when they're bloody awful, he's explaining how wonderful the times were.
Well, it's very similar to me. I mean, if you imagine one of Alan Bennett's plays about a family, staying at a seaside boarding house, you pretty much got it there.
Yes.
I remember my parents having polite conversation with some of the other people at the other tables in the dining room and trying to be as respectable as possible and everything.
Yes. You had to sit still and not talk and not do anything silly,
Oh, yeah.
Probably have to dress quite smartly as well.
Yeah. My mum would have a Sunday best on, with a handbag and a necklace.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents, my mum, she needed to keep up with the Joneses in a way.
Oh, yes. What was that series with Reg Varney in? He was like
a
millionaire.
Beggar My Neighbour.
Beggar My Neighbour, yeah. And it was always a bit like that, where you had to kind of impress the neighbours.
Yeah, as I say, people with blazers, and my dad would Brill-cream his hair back, It was like a week of Sundays,
Yeah, well, I remember on one of these holidays with my dad, we went out one evening, he did take me out.
Yeah.
And we had a meal in a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, quite something. And the waiter was a bit stuffy,
Yes.
And he must have been like the wine waiter as well, because he wanted to show my dad the wine list. Like, wine is something we would never even conceive of having.
Showing him the wine list,
And my dad said, well, no, we'll just have 2 teas, please. 2 cups of tea. And at the end of the meal, the waiter came up with the bill, and he gave it to my dad, and he went, 2 dinners. And just chucked it out.
Just like that?
Because he hadn't ordered any wine. He hadn't spent money on wine.
Yeah.
And my dad told that story for years afterwards.
Did he?
2 dinners.
Well, it was like that, wasn't it? I mean, my parents didn't buy alcohol,
No.
I mean, if we went out for a meal, it would be like a fish and chip type restaurant.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'd go into these afternoon cafes, where you'd have the waitresses and all that.
Yeah.
And I'd sit there with my orange squash,
Well, of course, particularly by the seaside, you would have those sort of cafes, wouldn't you?
Yeah. My mum absolutely loved those sort of tea rooms,
Yeah. And it's like going back to the 1950s, really.
Yeah.
You get your pot of tea and your jam sandwiches or whatever, and a bit of cake.
All this time I'd be restless and I'd be saying, when are we going to go so-and-so, Mum? When are we going to go there?
You got all that energy inside you. Yeah, you want to go out and do the proper stuff.
That's right,
proper holiday stuff.
And I'd probably be really bothering my parents. All they wanted was a quiet pot of tea for 2.
Yeah.
When can we go to the newsagents next door and get a comic or something?
Yeah.
When can we go to the beach? Yeah. That was it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Can we get my bucket and spade now? Oh, we've just come out,
Yeah, sit still.
Yeah, sit still. But when I was on the beach, that was it. I was made then because, I'd have my bucket and spade and I'd probably make a sandcastle and I'd spend a whole morning or afternoon, getting it just so. Only for the tide to come and wash it out.
Well, I remember being on the beach, probably at Swanage.
Yeah.
And I had my jeans on.
Oh, yeah.
So I took my top off and I was going into sin. I was just rolling my jeans up. Mum said, why don't you put your trunks on? I said, no, only sissies wear trunks. I'm a rocker. And so I was determined to keep my jeans on.
Yeah.
And there's actually footage of me running in and out of the sea, coming back up.
Oh, is there? Right,
And,
okay.
I mean, my jeans are absolutely soaked. And for about 3 days afterwards, my legs were stained blue
Right,
with
right.
the dye in the jeans.
Yeah, but
It'd come out.
But keeping your jeans on seemed cooler, and that was the point, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've got to look cool. I mean, I am 8.
Yeah. So you went to Swanage. What other places did you go to then?
Torbay and Torquay and Paynton.
Paynton,
in
oh yeah.
Devon.
So all those places like on the south coast, like they're all places I've been to in adult life, and they're really nice. But at the time, the possibility of being able to go to one of those places would have seemed very exotic, after Clacton.
Well,
Yeah.
particularly Torquay.
Yeah.
Was almost continental.
The English Riviera. So what would you do in the daytime? What would be a typical day on the coast?
Spending most of the day on the beach, probably fish and chips, and then by 7 o'clock we'd probably be back at the caravan.
Yes.
My dad listening to radio, and me reading the Beano. We would have sandwiches, and my mum would wrap the sandwiches in greaseproof paper. And there was something very appealing about the aroma.
Yeah.
And it would be cheese and tomato or spam.
Spam, yeah.
Yeah, I think corned beef was probably considered a bit of a luxury.
We were quite limited because we were in a guest house. Any packed lunch we took to the beach, it'd have to be stuff that we could make up on the spot sort of thing,
And shops weren't really set up for that in those days.
No, they weren't they? If I was lucky, I'd get a comic that I could take down to read on the beach.
The Beano Summer Special.
Well, it'd probably be like a DC comic if it was mid-60s. Batman, Superman, or detective comics, something like that.
But you'd get like the Punch and Judy thing on the beach, and that just frightened the bloody life out of me. I wouldn't go anywhere near.
I mean, I used to go along. I was sort of fascinated by it, but it was a bit ghoulish, wasn't it?
And I was so angry.
The puppets always looked quite frightening, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They're very grotesque.
Something creepy about them.
Well, I couldn't understand why kids were laughing. And,
It never felt like innocent fun to me, even at the time,
No.
But, in contrast to that, the amusement arcades, I always found them really fascinating and mysterious in a good way. And there was a certain smell in there as well, wasn't there? You could smell like the sort of electricity in I think it was the machine oil or something.
Yeah.
There was a certain excitement attached to it.
Yes. A bit similar to like in a fairground, where you would have dodgems.
That's right, yeah. Well, that was the only other place you actually got to see amusement arcades, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, fairgrounds.
Yes. We went away for a short holiday on the Isle of Wight recently.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a place there with a little museum, like a little mini museum.
Yeah.
And it's just full of slot machines and all the old stuff.
I used to go on the pier, and there used to be all different sorts of rides and that. But the one thing I didn't go on, I was really scared of the ghost train.
Oh, yeah.
I used to think, why would I want to pay money just to be shocked in the dark,
Yeah, gosh.
I remember going on the Dodgems once or twice, and I used to think that was a bit rough, wasn't it? Because
Yeah.
you used to get bumped by people that you didn't know in other cars.
That's right, yeah. No, just give me the fruit machines, that's fine.
But all these mysterious machines in the amusement arcades, Madame Francesca, will tell your fortune.
Ah.
It was quite surreal in a way. And we had like a picture of her on the front, and she looked kind of creepy.
Yeah.
I remember seeing an afternoon variety show near the pier one year in the 60s, and it was hosted by Ted Rogers.
Ted Rogers?
Yeah, telling like normal corny gags. Even at the time, I thought it was old hat,
Yeah.
And there was a bit of a beauty contest he had to judge as well,
Of course, but remember the Miss World contest? That was big news, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
I can still hear the guy making the announcement, Miss Venezuela, So what do you do? Oh, I'm a hairdresser. Oh, okay. And what would you like to do? Well, I'd like to travel the world and meet people.
Yeah. I'm interested in developing ideas for solar energy. Yeah, it was always something which made them seem a bit more intellectual than they actually were.
Yeah.
I'm involved in children's charities and the Variety Club of Great Britain.
Yeah, we're trying to work out the paradox between subatomic nuclear physics and Einstein's theories. There's a great dilemma there.
And we'll get there one day.
You'll get there one day, love. Well done. Well done,
Yeah,
my love. Well done.
In the meantime, that's a very nice swimming costume you're wearing.
It reminds me of that Monty Python sketch where it's like the Academy Awards.
Oh, yes.
With Eric Idle. And as the programme goes on, he's doing more and more outrageous things to try and get his tears flowing.
That's right. But whatever you were doing on holiday, you're always distracted because you were always assaulted by the smells of food, weren't you?
Yes.
Hot dogs with fried onions. You used to see Cornish ice cream a lot by the sea, didn't you?
Cornish ice cream, yeah. I always thought that Cornish ice cream was like for grown-ups. That's a bit more serious.
Unusual kind of aftertaste, I used to think, is that it was a bit odd.
Yeah, proper ice cream, Mr. Whippy.
Yeah, Mr. Whippy, yeah.
The candy floss, I'm not sure about candy floss. It's a bit weird.
But after you've been eating it a while, it used to start dripping, didn't it? It used to go sort of hard and wet, didn't it?
Yeah, and you always had that feeling of, I wonder when I'm going to get to the bit in the middle, and there is no bit in the middle.
Yeah, no, there is no bit in the middle.
That's right.
There's that metaphor for life again. Seaside evening entertainment was quite a big thing, wasn't it?
Yes.
I remember one year, I think it would have been 1965, there's this place called the Princess Theatre, I think it was. And I remember seeing a board outside of what was on tonight. And what was on that night was The Who. They were playing a gig there live.
Wow. Just when they're bursting on the scene.
And I remember thinking, wow, they're actually here tonight.
God.
You know, I was far too young to see it. I remember my dad pointing it out because he said, oh, it's that group, like the drummer. He sort of like smashes his drums up on stage sort of thing. I was thinking, oh, this is really exciting. I'm really in the centre of things here. This is, you know. Gosh. In those days, I mean, there's no real proper gig circuit. They used to play like dance halls and variety venues, didn't they?
That's right, yeah. It was a bit of a hodgepodge, wasn't it? Because you'd have your Tommy Trinders and your Tommy Coopers.
Yeah.
And then you'd have the Hollies and a magic act, probably, like Robert Harbin.
Yeah. It's like looking at a typical lineup for Sunday night at the London Palladium, wasn't it? I mean, some of these end of the pier shows we saw on holiday were like that. Yeah. And when I was very, very young, we went to see Morecambe and Wise.
Really?
Yeah, they were doing a seaside season. But I was so young, I don't really remember it because I fell asleep on my mum's lap.
Oh,
so I was completely spark out, and they told me about it the next morning.
Oh, well, my parents took me to see the Ken Dodd laughter show.
Oh, yeah.
That was a bit later. That was 1967.
Right. Did it have any laughter in it?
Well, not really. But there was one bit, he was talking about his father-in-law or something.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, he's up on the roof pinching the lead. And everyone burst out laughing. Oh, why is that funny?
Yeah, why is that funny? Yeah, that's right, yeah. Mind you, I think that about all Ken Dodd stuff anyway. Why is that funny, you know?
And you had the Diddy men on stage.
Did he? Yeah.
And when we came out of the theatre,
Did
the Diddy men all leant out of their dressing room windows waving at us. Where's my shirt?
Yeah,
I can't find my shirt.
Catchphrases, I mean, that was the thing. When you look at them now, it's like when you get, where's my washboard? I mean, it's about as meaningful as that, isn't it? Yeah. They become funny through repetition, don't they?
Yeah, they mean nothing at all.
No, nothing. Talking about comedians with catchphrases, though, actually, probably only about a year or so after the Morecambe and Wise one, we went to see Dick Emery do a thing, and I actually remember that one.
Wow.
I can remember him on stage.
Was he just breaking through?
He was known on television, because I remember him doing that, you know, he used to do like a yokel character.
I remember that.
Country Bumpkin, used to stand by style, didn't he?
That's right.
And he used to talk with a bit of corn in his mouth or whatever.
That's right.
I remember him doing that character.
He was sort of like a showbiz personality type. He was very, very popular.
He was, yeah. The last year we went on holiday, we went to see this variety show, and this was one occasion that was memorable for the wrong reasons, though. We went to see this show at the
City Varieties Theatre Leeds.
No.
Junior Showtime.
No, it wasn't that.
Oh, okay.
Fortunately, it wasn't that. It was actually Tommy Trinder.
Tommy Trinder.
So this was in 1972.
Wow. He was still around.
Still around. He's still doing. He was doing a summer season, obviously.
With his trilby.
With his trilby, yeah. You know, my parents obviously remembered him. So we got tickets and went to see this thing. And I suppose they thought, oh, yeah, it's safe to take him to something like this. Yeah. Tommy Trinder, that'll be all right. You know, sort of like a bit of variety.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were sitting there. I was in the middle, I think. My mum and dad were either side of me. And he was doing this sort of sketch, this routine. And I don't remember the details of it, but the premise was he had this sort of dolly bird in the sketch, you know, this young girl. And she was in a swimming costume. I'm not quite sure why. I think she had some kind of post-hypnotic suggestion placed on her So when he said a certain word or phrase, she started dropping the shoulder strap of her bikini, you know.
Oh, my goodness.
So, of course, I was sitting there with my parents. I just froze in my seat, you know.
Yeah.
Just at that age of 14 to 15, sort of, you know.
Yeah.
So this was this sketch coming up, which is a little bit near the knuckle. So I thought, oh no, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And then the musicians in the orchestra pit, you know, started playing the stripper theme. And I thought, oh no, where's this going to go, sort of thing. So my mum was probably sort of like, you know, she'd probably frozen. And she'd be like quietly coughing or rustling around in her bag for some sweets or something, you know, just to pretend it wasn't happening. Oh dear, we've taken him to see this thing. Fortunately, it didn't get any further than like the strap got moved down her shoulder, you know, and something happened to actually stop it going any further.
Yeah.
And it happened a few times, and I thought, oh, dear, get me out of here. You know, I just wanted to be back in the boarding house, you know. So.
Well, I had a very similar experience a bit later in life.
Right, okay.
And it did go that extra mile.
Did it?
Unfortunately. Now, this is a lot later. I went to see some distant relatives with my mum in California.
Yeah.
And the people we stayed with took us to Las Vegas.
The real Las Vegas.
The real Las Vegas.
Not the one that was at Clacton-on-Sea.
No. And we stayed in a hotel called the Hacienda.
Oh, yeah.
And their little trademark thing was Hacienda, first hotel on the strip. But really, it should have said last hotel on the strip.
Right, yeah. Last chance.
Bit travel lodge, you know.
Was it?
Yeah. And so we came downstairs for evening dinner, and it's all very nice. And then there was a show on, and it was a burlesque show.
Oh, dear.
So the first half of it was fine. There's a bit of music, a bit of comedy or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a break. And then the second half was this slightly more adult bit. And these dancing girls came on.
I think I can see where this is going, yeah.
I'm with my mum and my other relatives of similar age. And these dancing girls came on. And there's probably about a dozen of them. And they're all topless.
Oh, no.
And I just froze. My mum's sitting next to me.
How was she reacting?
She looked ahead. It was like a photograph. She had this kind of half smile on her face.
Right.
Staring straight ahead as if to say, this isn't happening.
This isn't
I'm pretending that this isn't happening.
Yeah.
I'm not going to show any emotion. I'm just going to have a half smile on my face until it's finished.
Yes.
And no words are spoken.
And you were trying to sort of like get into the ground, basically, weren't you?
Just horrendously awkward.
You see, this is the thing. Same with me with Tommy Trinder. Had my parents not been there, I would have enjoyed that.
Yeah. But it's a bit like when you used to watch Monty Python.
Yes.
And your parents are in the room.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
you're hoping to God there's nothing rude going to.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened then?
It wasn't referred to again.
That was the last show you went to with your mum, wasn't it?
I bet there was an even worse situation on that same holiday.
I'm just wondering how it can get worse from that.
It got worse. The relatives we were staying with took us to see a friend of theirs.
Yeah.
And he was sort of like a bit of a fun bachelor type guy.
Mm.
And we were all sitting there chatting. He said, my son and his girlfriend stayed here last night. He said, they slept in that room there. And he said, boy, I tell you, he said, they kept me up all night. He said, boy, he said, the F asterisk 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 G that was going on in there was just amazing. So my mum reverted to her fixed stare again.
Oh, did she? Yeah. Oh,
and I was like, my jaw dropped. Beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah, because that sort of thing didn't happen in your life.
Didn't exist.
Yeah, it didn't exist,
didn't
did it?
exist.
That was my mum's approach to it all. Anything like that happened. You know, as with the Tommy Trinder thing, that sort of thing never happened again. But
No.
I think my mum would probably wish it hadn't happened that time, you know. I mean, most of the shows we went to were very harmless, you know, variety shows and that, you know. But it did ensure that I didn't forget that holiday. You always felt like you were on your best behaviour when you were on holiday, though, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was the problem. I remember it must have been a quite shocking memory from my parents, actually. One of the very early holidays I went on. I think I could have been no older than about 3, if that. But I've got a memory of it. We were staying in this guest house and we were just walking into the gate one day to go into our room. The garden path was lined with flower beds and you had these sort of gladioli type flowers down the sides. And I was just like a toddler and I was running down this garden path and I decided to start uprooting all these flowers.
Oh.
So my parents must have been, having a heart attack, basically.
Oh, no.
So I was running down there. I was just pulling them up one side and the other. And I remember my parents following me down, trying to pack them back in again as quickly as possible. I remember them saying, you're going to get thrown out.
Oh, no.
Fortunately, no one was looking, but it's just one of those things toddlers do, isn't it?
Well, That's right, because you don't know any better, do
You
you?
don't know any better now. Did you have any wacky situations when you were on holiday?
Well, yes.
You did?
Well, I mean, we
What
took
is-
our budgie on holiday with us.
Did you? You took your budgie on holiday with you?
We took the budgie because otherwise,
So you didn't have anyone to look after it then?
well, I don't think we would have even thought of asking the neighbours to come in and feed the budgie.
Right, yeah.
We felt it was our duty to take the budgie with us, and so we'd have to take him with a full stand and the cage hanging in the corner of the caravan.
Not much of a holiday,
No.
was it?
Not for the budgie. He didn't realise he was on holiday.
Well, not for your parents as well. I mean,
No.
all the responsibility of having to look after the budgies. That's normal.
Yeah. So, budgie came with us.
You always felt on duty on holiday, though. You know, the parents made you self-conscious sometimes.
I think you're right.
I used to hate it when we used to go in restaurants or anything like that, you know, or in the boarding house when you were kind of like having your breakfast or evening meal. My parents would always be reminding me to, you know, watch my P's and Q's. You know, that kind
you
of
got
thing.
to dress smartly.
Yeah, that's right.
Comb your hair.
Yeah.
Which, of course, you hated.
In the middle of the day, of course, you know, you were banished from the guest house, so you had to eat out. So,
Or get fish and chips.
yeah, basically, yeah.
Mm.
Which was perfectly all right. I prefer doing that because I was very self-conscious about eating in cafes or restaurants when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, it's usually sort of like fish and chip restaurants or very brown sauce, you know, those sort of places, you know,
Yeah.
things, you know.
And get your elbows off the table.
Yeah, that's right. And eat everything up. Don't leave anything, otherwise you'll show us up. You know,
You'll show us up.
That was always the favourite phrase. Yeah, you don't want to show us up, do you? Like it was my prime consideration, you know.
Oh dear.
Like I'd given it thought.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, as a kid, you were a bit of a fussy eater, weren't you? So it's like, if you order that for breakfast, you are going to eat it all, aren't you?
Yeah.
You know, it's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Eat your greens.
Yeah,
Eat your greens.
yeah. I used to hate those places. You used to see restaurants by the sea, and they would say like children's portions served. You know, and I used to hate the concept of that because I just think, does that mean I'm going to get less? You know?
Yeah, but the ironic thing now is if I go somewhere on holiday now, I
Yeah.
think, oh, do they do children's portions? Because that's all I want.
Oh, really?
But the other type of holodays we had in the 60s were caravan holidays.
Oh, yeah, caravan, you were saying, yeah.
Yeah, it's okay, but there's always that vague aroma of colour
Something.
gas. Yeah, there's a kind of vague aroma of that in
Was
the
there?
background.
Was there? Yeah.
And also, my dad worked out that if you didn't like the people next door, what you did was you got some breadcrumbs and chucked them on the roof of their caravan.
Really?
And then they would have crows scattering around on their roof all night. Just to annoy your neighbours.
So that satisfied him.
That
did
was the highlight of his holiday.
Oh, okay.
Was to annoy the neighbours with breadcrumbs on the roof.
Strange priority, yeah. There.
I remember we went down there one year, down to the New Forest, and my dad was addicted to chiclets. Do you remember chiclets?
I remember the name, yeah.
They look a bit like Smarties, but they
Oh,
were actually
yeah.
sort of chewing gum inside.
Oh, yeah.
And he was addicted to chiclets.
That and throwing crumbs on the roof.
Yeah, this was the peak of his entertainment. And while we were down there, we visited Tor Bay.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
my dad, I think he must have gone into a record shop or a gift shop, and he bought a 33 1/3 RPM EP
Right.
called The Sounds of Tor Bay,
Oh, really?
which was basically an advert for going on holiday in the Tor Bay area.
Yeah, that was a real swinging choice for the 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah, narrated by Johnny Morris.
Ah, I can hear the Animal Magic music now. You said
Yeah.
Johnny Morris, yeah.
I've still got it.
I bet he never played it afterwards.
Not really.
No. I remember one quite key moment, you know, going on holidays.
Yeah.
I mean, this was quite a turning point for us. Up until I was about 7 or 8, we always had like a week's holiday, always in Clacton. Well, my dad used to take 2 weeks off of work. So we'd have a week by the sea, and then when he came back, he'd have another week's holiday at home, probably to recover. But one year, while we were on holiday, I remember he won a reasonable amount of money on the horses while he was there at the betting shop. I seem to think it was like in the region of about £100 or something like that,
Wow.
which was quite a bit. I mean, I don't think he ever won the same amount again, you know.
No.
And I remember it was like we were walking along one day and it was put to us, you know, by my dad. And he said, we were just thinking, I've got this money and would we like another week by the sea?
Oh.
A second week.
Wow.
So, you know, my answer was obviously yes.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Oh, right.
So after that, we liked it so much, we always had 2 weeks holiday
I
afterwards.
see.
suddenly, winning that little bit of money like that, it felt like we'd suddenly become rock stars or something.
Yeah.
And then I think in the end, we got so fed up with all the rules and regulations of guest houses, we used to get, a self-catering studio flat after that.
Okay.
So we could come and go as we pleased and that.
Yeah.
Some of the landladies could be quite difficult. I remember one or two of them being far more brusque than others,
Oh, blimey.
Yeah.
In the early 70s,
Yeah.
we were living in the shop, in the grocer's shop.
Yeah.
And I think at that time, my parents felt a bit sorry for me because
Did they?
we weren't doing proper like family holidays anymore.
What, you mean like throwing breadcrumbs on your neighbour's roof?
There always had to be someone in the shop. So for a couple of years, my dad would take me to Southwold.
Oh, Southwold,
on the Suffolk coast.
Yeah.
Just for a couple of days.
Right.
And we'd stay in a bed and breakfast.
Mm.
We did do B&B.
Yeah.
And we had a very nice elderly lady that we stayed with, and she would make us a nice cooked breakfast.
Yeah. Sounds a lot better than some of the landladies we had.
But yeah, you were sort of expected to be out of the house most of the day, weren't you?
Evenings were quite different because we were happy to be out. We used to go and do things. We would go to this show and it would be very much like a working men's club type of entertainment. You'd have an organist and possibly a drummer.
Yeah.
And you'd have a compare and games and participation and sing-along.
And a meat raffle.
Yeah. We had one in Clacton, I always remember it, and it was called the Jack Creed Giveaway Show.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And he was sort of like a kind of a Max Bygraves type character. Had all the patter, and my parents took me along to that a couple of times. And he challenged people to ask him a question, and if he didn't know the answer, they get a prize. And my mum asked him a sort of songs from stage musicals type question, which he couldn't answer.
Yes.
And she won cinema tickets to see The Sound of Music. There was a new film out, so I remember us going along to see that. But I think the Jack Reed show had some kind of beauty or talent contest to be judged.
And in fact, they would have them at holiday camps.
Holiday camps are very much a thing of the past now, aren't they, as well?
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody the other day about a music festival going on at Butlins at Minehead.
Yeah. Well, there was one I played at myself at Skegness.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if that's Butlins.
Yeah.
But it's actually ideal for it because you've got various venues and all these little chalets.
You don't have to go anywhere after the gig, do you, basically?
You've got Centre Parks is another one.
That's more like a modern take on holiday camps, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all quite high tech, isn't it?
I've never been to any of them.
No, I've never been attracted to...
I mean, it's like a controlled environment. A bit clinical, isn't it?
Yeah, everything's sort of indoors.
Yeah, actually, those holidays you had with your dad in Southwold sound a lot nicer.
Just me and my dad, yeah. There was like a little putting green and we went fishing and it was actually quite nice. But we didn't really have a full family holiday again until 73.
I used to think, it'd be nice to vary the holidays once in a while, just a bit, But I used to like Clacton. I mean, some of my friends used to go to other places. One family went to Norfolk Broads, and Cornwall. I used to think that seems really exotic.
And the thought of somebody going abroad.
I didn't know anybody that went abroad or had ever been abroad.
No. The last family holiday I did with my parents would have been summer holidays of 73, and we went to Burnham-on-Sea.
Oh yeah.
A holiday camp called Hollymarine.
Hollymarine,
and
okay.
it was a caravan holiday.
Yeah.
So there's me and my mum and dad and my cousin Melanie, and I've still got a photograph with me wearing this really gaudy, horrible tank top.
I remember tank tops, yeah.
And a cream-coloured bruiser shirt with big round collars on it. And I thought I looked really cool.
Yeah.
And I was hanging out the window there.
It's just at that point in your teens when you started to feel like you were a bit of an adult, but actually you weren't. You were just showing that you were still a kid, really, weren't you? The last family holiday for me was 72, actually, just the year before that. We went one last time, and I remember it being very awkward. I think I was 14 going on 15.
Yeah.
I knew that I was going to start college that autumn, so I knew all life was going to change drastically after that. I was pleased to be there on holiday, but at the same time, I remember thinking, I want to do kind of things that other of teenagers do. So I didn't want to go around with my parents, you know,
Right.
to the end of the pier shows and all that sort of thing, you know. And we never went on holiday after that, so that was the end of it, really, you know.
Yeah, I think when you get to that age, you want to start putting your own mark on things, don't you?
Yeah, it's funny though, because like, you know, we went every year right from my earliest memories, and I absolutely loved going. I was always totally at home by the sea. But when they did stop, I had no qualms about them stopping at all because I just outgrown going on holiday with my parents. It's funny, isn't it?
Well, I think I'm the same. And my first holiday on my own with a couple of friends of mine
Yeah.
was when I was 18.
Oh, right, yeah.
So that was 75.
75, yeah.
And we went to Caister holiday camp
Taster, yeah.
on the coast
Yeah.
in Norfolk.
Yeah.
And that was a different experience.
You thought that was going to be like adults going on holiday sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we were 18, so we're just about old enough to buy drinks and go in the disco.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
But they would have entertainment on in the evenings, and they had a house band there, which was Ivy Benson's all-girl show band. So you could have like a tea dance in the afternoon.
Oh, sounds really swinging.
And then in the evening, the resident house band was a duo called Twice as Nice.
Oh,
And it was the keyboard player and a drummer.
it's raw sex, isn't it?
It's raw sex, and they played all the latest hits.
I can see that. I can see exactly. I mean, just the name sort of conjures it up
Yeah,
perfectly.
But you see,
Yeah.
but years later,
Yeah.
I'm guilty of the same thing myself, because years later, when I was like in my early 20s,
Yeah.
I joined a duo called Key Sticks.
Did
and
you?
it was keyboards
And
and
drums. Right, yeah.
We would do Shaking Stevens and
What I want to know is you joined a duo called that. I mean, there's only two of you, so how could it be an existing duo before you joined?
Yeah. Well, one night there, they had special celebrity star performance. Nicky Martin, who just had a big success on New Faces.
I remember New Faces, yeah. So he's basically living off of that success for the next few years, yeah.
And he did the thing where he talked to somebody in the audience. He said, you said, can I ask where you've come from? Oh, Liverpool. He said, oh, Liverpool, yeah. So he said, oh, yeah. He said, yeah, that's where you don't bother to get out of the bath when you're going to the loo, isn't it? But we're at the back end of childhood there. We're 1975.
Yes.
Bordering into being an adult.
Yeah. So you're just kind of looking on slightly detached from it. No, it's like we're here for the cool stuff, really.
Yeah.
We're not here for this variety stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And unfortunately, search as we did, we couldn't find any cool stuff.
No, there wasn't any cool stuff, no. But that sort of holiday was a slightly different nature, wasn't it?
Yeah, because now you're the adult, so you have to set the parameters of what's acceptable.
That's right. I remember when I was 19, after we stopped going on holiday, my mum wanted to kind of revisit Clacton. You know, she thought it'd be nice. My dad didn't want to come. So I had a day trip to Clacton with my mum. I mean, in that few years since we stopped going on holidays, I was completely a different person.
Yeah.
Going to gigs, I had hair down my shoulders.
Yeah.
Wearing flares and that, you know. But what I took away from that afterwards is like, you could never go back.
Right.
I could never go for that sort of holiday ever again.
No, it's a bit like me when I moved out from West London towards Wickham. The thought of going back and living in that area, I couldn't really think of doing that.
Yeah.
And yet, you can kind of relive that.
Yes.
It's not a physical place you go to.
No, I've had plenty of holidays by the sea in different places in adult life, and they've been really nice. But they're totally different in character to the ones I did as a child. Yeah. Although, if I go on holiday now, going somewhere like the Isle of Wight would be nice because it would seem like nostalgic and the sort of place I would have gone as a child.
Well, it was like me just the last few days down in Bridport. It was very, very much like the kind of place we would have been to. Well, these days I'm more looking in the camera beer guide to see where the best pubs are,
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's your agenda, though, isn't it?
Yeah. As a child, you're kind of fitting in with what your parents want, really. But it was always nice to get back home. And one of the things I remember, first of all, you open the door and you wade through a sea of mail that had come through the door.
That's right. You did, didn't you?
And then you had to get used to the angle of the stairs being different.
Yeah.
Because the stairs at my grandparents' house were really steep.
You had about a day, didn't you, when you got home from holiday, when you had to sort of acclimatise yourself, and it seemed quite strange to be home, didn't it?
It did, but it was kind of nice, comforting to get back.
I used to like the first time I met up with my friends, like in the neighbourhood again, because you share stories of what you did on holiday.
Yeah.
It felt exciting before the kind of like the dreariness of being back sort of hit in, you know.
You soon settle back to your normal.
And you realise that
routine.
school's coming up soon, don't you?
Oh,
You know,
God.
in a few. But just, you know, going sort of like 50 miles away, 60 miles from your house seemed like a big deal when you're on holiday, didn't it? I mean, people now, they think nothing of getting on a plane and going to whatever country. So actually the world has got smaller, hasn't it?
You can virtually get anywhere within 12 hours or...
I know, which is good in some ways and bad in others.
Well, I remember in 1968, my sister, who was 7 years older than me, she went to America with a family to be an au pair.
Oh, yeah.
A child carer. And I remember we went to Heathrow to see her off.
Right.
And I think she went on a TWA 707 with this posh family. And I remember we were sitting in the departure lounge, and it was around about the beginning of the Apollo space program.
Right.
And I remember just thinking, America, it was like she was going to the moon. She was going to get in a spaceship and fly to another world.
And there we must leave them. Time to go home now. Why not pop in again soon to revisit some more old memories at the Time Warp Tavern. Last orders, please.